Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really powerful psychological strategy that most of us use without even knowing it, the ability to manage how we feel just by changing how we think.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you could actually transform your own emotional state just by reframing a situation in your head? Well, it's a pretty compelling idea, right? And it's not just some self-help fantasy. It's a real, well-researched strategy called cognitive reappraisal. So let's set the stage here. We all have those moments. You know the ones where emotions like anxiety or stress or even anger just feel like they're taking over. Learning how to deal with them, that's a fundamental challenge for all of us. Take stage fright. It is the perfect example of this. It shows just how our own thoughts can spin up this powerful, sometimes debilitating emotional spiral. One researcher calls it a vicious circle of distressing thoughts. And that really hits the nail on the head. And look, this isn't just all in your head. The physical feelings are incredibly real. It's a total body takeover. Your heart pounds, your hands start to shake, maybe even feel a little sick to your stomach. It's this cascade of physical reactions that can totally throw you off your game, whether you're on a stage or in any other high-stakes situation. So what can you actually do about it? Well, science points to a surprisingly effective strategy, a really powerful tool for our minds. And that tool is cognitive reappraisal. Okay, so what is cognitive reappraisal? The name sounds a little technical, but the idea is simple. And the absolute key is when it happens. Psychologists call it an antecedent-focused strategy. All that means is that you get in there early. You change the way you're thinking about something before the emotion really spins up and triggers that whole physical meltdown. So let's make this real. Imagine you've got a huge presentation coming up. That's the trigger. Your first gut reaction thought might be something like, oh no, I'm going to fail, everyone's going to judge me. But with reappraisal, you consciously hit pause and you reframe it. You tell yourself, wait, this isn't a threat. This is an opportunity to share what I know. And just like that, the feeling starts to shift away from pure fear and towards something more like focus or even excitement. Now, it's really helpful to compare reappraisal to what most of us often do, which is suppression, basically just bottling it all up. The huge difference is timing. Reappraisal is proactive. You're changing the story before the feeling gets big. Suppression is reactive. You're trying to shove the feeling down after it's already there. And honestly, the results couldn't be more different. Reappraisal is consistently linked to better well-being, whereas suppression, well, that often just makes things worse. Okay, but you don't have to take my word for it. This isn't just some nice-sounding theory. There is a ton of solid scientific evidence that shows just how powerful this is. Let's actually look at the data. So remember our musicians with stage fright? Well, one study took a group of them and put them through a training program to teach them how to self-regulate their emotions, using techniques very similar to reappraisal. And the results, they were pretty incredible. Just look at this number. After the training, these musicians saw a nearly 42% drop in what scientists call somatic anxiety. That's the fancy term for the actual physical gut punch feeling of stage fright, the shaky hands, the racing heart. We're not talking about just feeling a little better. This is a massive reduction in the physical symptoms of their fear. And get this, it wasn't just about feeling better. They actually performed better. Their music performance quality scores went up by almost 8 points. That's a huge deal. By getting a handle on their internal world, they literally unlocked a higher level of their own skill. This stuff has real, measurable results. So what is going on inside our brains when we do this? This is where it gets really cool. Brain scans, functional neuroimaging studies, give us this amazing window into our own heads. And they show that reappraisal literally rewires how your brain reacts to emotional stuff. It basically comes down to a kind of conversation between two key parts of your brain. When you successfully reappraise something, you see more activity up here in the prefrontal cortex. That's your brain's CEO, the part in charge of control and rational thought. And at the exact same time, you see less activity down in the amygdala, which is the brain's smoke detector or fear center. You are literally using your thinking brain to tell your emotional brain, hey, calm down, we got this.
So at this point, reappraisal is looking like a straight-up superpower. And it is. But like any tool, it has its limits. And this is where the story gets a lot more nuanced and I think a lot more useful. Which leads to the really critical question, right? If this is so powerful, if you can just think your way out of feeling bad, shouldn't you just do it all the time? Is positive thinking always the right move? Well, it turns out the answer is a clear no. Research has identified what they call boundary cases, situations where reappraisal just isn't the best tool for the job. Like when an emotion is just too intense and overwhelming, trying to rethink it is almost impossible. Sometimes just distracting yourself is a better first step. It also takes real mental energy, which you might not have when you're already stressed. But probably the most important limit is this one. It's not always a good idea to reframe a problem that you actually can and should do something about.
And this quote from researchers Ford and Troy makes a really vital point. If you're in a situation that is genuinely harmful or unjust, just trying to feel better about it can be, well, counterproductive. It can stop you from taking the action needed to actually change the situation. Sometimes those negative emotions are important signals that something in the world needs fixing, not just something in your mind. And all of this brings us to the final, and I think most important idea. The goal isn't to find one single magic trick to handle our emotions. The real goal is to build an entire toolbox. And that's the real takeaway here. True emotional intelligence isn't about getting really good at just one thing. It's about having a whole set of different tools and, crucially, knowing which tool to pull out for which job. This is what the experts call regulatory flexibility. So what does this look like in the real world? Okay, say you're stuck in a massive traffic jam. You can't control it. That's a perfect time for reappraisal. Reframe it as free time to listen to my favorite podcast. But what if you get some really shocking news? You might be too overwhelmed to think. That's when you grab a different tool, like distraction. Just focus on something else for a minute. And what about a tough project at work? That's a controllable problem. The right tool isn't to reframe it, it's to problem solve and take action. And sometimes, like with that pre-performance anxiety, the best tool is just acceptance, acknowledging the feeling without judging it and carrying on anyway. So the ultimate skill here isn't just knowing how to do reappraisal. It's knowing when to do it and when to reach for something else in your toolbox. It's this flexibility, this ability to match your strategy to the situation that is the true definition of emotional expertise. And that really leaves us with this final question to chew on. When your emotions are screaming at you, is it better to change your mind or is it better to change your world? Knowing the difference and having the right tool for both, that's the real power.